Athens, a city buzzing with commerce and culture. It's also a city of faith, Greek Orthodox faith, part of the great eastern arm of Christianity. There was another world here once, from which only tantalizing fragments remain. The world of the ancient Greeks. Their voice is still heard today through Greek mythology. This was a world populated by many gods and goddesses, each with specific powers, and each with a story of their own. For tens of thousands of years predating biblical times, accounts of the gods and their doings were passed down by the great storytellers.
It is extremely hard, but one tries to fantasize of what was it like in those days. I think favorite stories of gods must have been, thinking back, what did the child think and was impressed about was, how did Zeus give birth to Athena from a headache? Apollo, who was a very wild young man, who then developed into being the god of order, of music, of art. Poseidon, who would create storms when he was angry. Athena, who was the protector of our capital city and was in favor of peace.
Presiding over all was Zeus, god of the sky, god of thunder.
Zeus is a sky god, and you're in the domain of Zeus when you're out there in nature. Zeus had some control over whether you had a good day or a bad day, and a good life or a bad life. He had two jars on the doorsill, and there was a jar of good and a jar of evil. And to each man, Zeus would pour out a portion of good and a portion of evil.
Aphrodite and Artemis were two sides of the same coin.
Aphrodite. And what is she the goddess of? She is the goddess of sexuality, female sexuality. She's a goddess of beauty. She's associated with lots of fertility issues. You have Artemis on the other side. Artemis, who is this chaste virgin.
And Apollo, who, like all the gods and goddesses of ancient Greece, had more than one power.
He is the organizer, the civilizer. He's the one who brings roads to places where there were never roads before. He's the one who heals, but he also can bring plague. And this is something that happens in the case of many Greek gods. If they can cause something, they can also stop it.
He was a god, I heard it most brilliantly put, a god of distance, and therefore he would deal with people not face to face and hand to hand. He was better at shooting his bow and killing people from a very far off distance, and therefore his loves perhaps are best kept at a distance too.
These gods and goddesses evolved as the ancient Greeks sought to find meaning and perhaps faith in an often challenging world. The stories were embellished and changed over time as different civilizations came into contact with ancient Greece.
Greece has been inhabited since about 70,000 BCE, and there were invasions of people from the Middle East and from the north, and each invasion led to not another set of divinities, but further layers of divinity added to the existing divinities. So Greek gods are a real amalgam of multiple cultures, cultures of the Middle East mostly.
The Greek gods were of such diversity that they are unlike any many of the other gods from around the Mediterranean because they incorporated elements of a lot of different peoples around them. And they don't clearly match a lot of the other peoples, say, in Celtic or Italian religions.
These stories were passed down through oral tradition, but sometime around 750 BC, they were collected, organized, and written down. Although scholars disagree as to whether one author or many authors were involved in this effort, the popular belief is that one man was responsible: Homer.
As far as we know, the real crystallization of Greek mythology was around the time of Homer, 750 BC. And with Homer, we find the creation of Greek mythology and the creation of the gods. Homer gave the Greeks their gods. Homer was effectively the closest thing the Greeks had to a Bible.
In the beginning, Homer tells us, there was Okeanos, a spirit in the form of a great circular, endless river, flowing eternally back upon itself. There was another presence too, Tethys, sometimes called the First Mother. When they finally mated, they began the line of descent, which eventually produced the gods and goddesses of the ancient Greeks. Some 50 years after Homer, the poet Hesiod composed the Theogony, in which he too described the creation of the gods. But according to Hesiod, the world began differently. First, there was a supernatural presence called chaos, by which the poet meant emptiness, not disorder.
Once upon a time, there was chaos. And after chaos, there was a goddess called Gaia, Earth. And Gaia slept with, married, mated Uranus, heavens.
Uranus, however, did not want children. He felt threatened by them and kept them from being born. Gaia conspired with Kronos, one of her unborn children, who castrated his father, presumably from within his mother's womb. Uranus's severed genitals fell into the sea, from where a surprising entity emerged: Aphrodite, goddess of love. These stories make up what is known as Greek mythology, from the Greek word mythos, implying something untrue. But for the ancient Greeks, these stories were a matter of faith, explaining how and why the world worked as it did.
Interestingly, love and war, or violence and sex, are deeply connected in Greek mythology, and not only in Greek mythology, but in a number of mythologies. Why are these two things deeply connected? I think that the ancient peoples, and certainly the Greeks, felt that deeply passionate feelings were somehow connected in the human mind and in the human emotions. That is, great desires and great fears or great hatreds were somehow linked.
Hesiod's creation story goes on to tell how Kronos freed his brothers and sisters from Gaia's womb. These beings would be known as the Titans, born only after their father had been castrated. The theme of conflict between father and son continued, as Kronos went on to kill his own children.
Kronos married Rhea. Every time Rhea gave birth, he'd swallow the children. Rhea desperately wanted to have some children, and so she took one baby, Zeus, when he was born, and wrapped him up and hid him in a cave in Crete to be raised, and gave Kronos a stone wrapped up in swaddling clothes that he swallowed so that he thought he was swallowing the baby. Well, Zeus grew up, came, attacked his father, and all the children emerged.